Hey everyone, how is it going today? Hope you guys are having an awesome day. This is the 100th episode of the entire series, and to those of you who have been with me since the beginning, thank you so much for watching and continuing to support my channel. I really appreciate it. And to anybody who may just be joining, now is a great time to jump in because we still have plenty left to do in this playthrough to get to the end game. We have a lot of science packs still to go. We got a lot of work to do. And in this episode, what we're going to do is we're just going to take a break from doing a couple different sciencey things. And instead, what I'm going to do is a base tour, kind of going through my thought processes a little bit and all the things that have kind of been done up to this point. Just so in case if you are jumping into the channel right now, if you are jumping into this series, you kind of know where we're at, what's going on, and kind of the outlook going forward. I'm just going to do all this through satellite mode, so buckle up and enjoy. Now, way back in the day, when we first started, of course, on Novice, we started right all the way over here at our spaceship. And as you can see, there were obviously lots of patches of ore around here and things like that. Those are all gone. And instead, over here, we've got a huge oil processing, liquid processing area. So over here, well, I guess how I'm going to do this is I think, I could go through each individual things kind of starting from here, but I think I want to kind of go through the different processes. So that would be things like iron, copper, other planets, things of that nature, and how they go. There's obviously way too many things for me to explain how literally everything works, simply because there's so many things going on. And I just can't go through all of those. But I'll go through what I can. So first off, we have iron. Iron is out over here at this iron ore patch that has 15 million left, which is still a decent amount. At some point, I am going to have to start shipping in some more iron, but that is going to be for the future. So we've got our iron here. We've got our iron enriching as well. And that gets turned into, of course, the molten iron. We've got plenty of filtration plants here, filtering out the dirty water from our enrichment processes. And then I still have to replace all the beacons over here, but realistically, this still has 25,000 ingots. I'm really not in any trouble of running out at the moment. So, but I may do that here in the near future, is replace all of the modules or beacons for all these, which I've been working on slowly but surely. And same over here. It looks like we're maybe missing some beacons, but that's okay. I've tried to productivity module everything in my base, mainly because I like the fact that I don't have to rebuild my ore gathering as often when I use productivity modules. Not using productivity modules, I would have to do that more often, and that's honestly, if I had to pick one thing of the game that I dislike, it's that. It's having to go find new resources. So that is iron there. The next thing we can look at is steel, which is a very similar process. We've got this big, huge 25 million iron ore patch over here. And we have coke shipped in from our base, which is where we make all of our coke. Obviously, we've got our iron enriching here, and then iron enriching gets turned into molten iron. And then the molten iron gets turned into molten steel, or into steel ingots rather, with coke and the molten iron. So that process is almost the exact same as iron, obviously. We've got a ton of steel ingots. We're backed up on all of our ingots, actually, which is good. And then copper is done up here. Now, copper always has been up here, but this patch used to be way bigger, and we have now blown through it. Well, we'll check out the productivity stats at some point in this episode. But we do have another copper patch up here, which is actually pretty small. 6 million that we're mining out right now. But my goal is going to be to eventually expand over here and kind of block these areas off instead of where I am blocked off currently to grab these giant copper patches. I could also do asteroid mining, but we'll figure that out when we get there. Hasn't happened yet. And the copper process is almost the exact same. We don't need to go through that. But we do ship in copper over here. So I guess that part is a little bit interesting-ish. I never can remember what hotkey to press. Okay, there we go. So we do ship in our copper here. So we've got our copper trains coming in, and that just kind of feeds back into the system with priority set here so that this thing is running. Trying to get rid of this patch, but I mean, that doesn't really matter. And yeah, so again, this patch is pretty much the same. We do have a recycling system set up. We've got recycling for all the stone that comes out of our filtering of dirty water. We've also got a recycling system set up for extra copper from our base from all of the scrap processing that we do coming from outer space. And we have the same for iron as well. Over here, we have our immersite processing. Now, immersite actually comes from two different places right now. We have a spaceship that is doing one set, and perfect timing. That is amazing timing. Thank you very much. That was completely planned. I just hope you guys know that right now. No, but seriously, we have the spaceship that I recently automated for my first ever spaceship automation. And this brings in immersite, obviously, from a very nearby moon. And then we also have a train dropping off immersite. That comes from one of our other planets that is almost out of immersite, which is why we ended up automating the spaceship. Obviously, immersite process. I'm not going to go through all the steps here, but we've got crystals, we've got immersium plates, and we've got a split train, dealing with all of the byproducts of all of that. Down here, we've got our rare metals mining, which I doubt I will ever run out of. Over here, this is where our copper ingots get turned into copper plates. Obviously, we have quite a lot of, we use a ton of copper plates. Seriously, like this base just chews through copper. What's going on? Okay, we're also under attack. So in my play strategy, as I mentioned, I do a lot with the productivity modules. Like literally everything is productivity module that can be productivity module. And the downside to that is that we have very, very high pollution levels. So if we come out here and check this out, like you can't even see my pollution cloud because it's so big. And so that is a downside because I have to very heavily defend my walls. Like at all times, pretty much, I have my my walls under attack by some raiding party or another. You can see we've got some fire going on down here. So it's been a struggle at times to make sure that my base is actually safe. Thankfully, we've never gotten overrun, but I mean, there have been times where I've had to like go run and fight a group that got past my walls. So we'll look at kill stats here, I guess, really quickly as I'm talking about that. But yeah, you can see here, some big numbers. We got 132,000 big spitters, 95,000 big biters, and a lot of behemoths, really, when you think about it. And if we even look at like the last hour, we're averaging killing 18 a minute of these, 23 a minute, 46 and 61. Like that's a decent amount. And you know, you can even see that they've taken out a handful of laser turrets and construction bots. So we do have to defend ourselves, at least on Novice, like pretty heavily, and one of the other planets at least we do as well. Now, in terms of like oil products, we have our main oil processing over here, and you can see we actually only have. I could really get rid of all of these plastic chemical plants because these are doing literally nothing. These two chem plants are pretty much doing everything that we need them to. Plus, the nice thing about these is we can fit 4 modules instead of 3 in these, so we actually can make more efficient plastic, which is super important. I may end up replacing these here shortly, but I also have a ton of other sulfur coming from over here as well. So looks like I'm short on something right now. I think it might be petroleum. Yeah, it looks like I'm short on petroleum. Not exactly sure why. Too much light oil. And this isn't running. And I'm not going to try and debug issues as I'm going. I'm just going to talk about it and you guys can see it. We also have this big oil processing plant over here. And this is also super important for our base because we do use quite a lot of oil products. The main one of which really, like, obviously is petroleum for things like sulfur, sulfuric acid, which are super important in the ingot processing, right? Because we do the enrichment process, And so one of the balances of Krastorio 2 space exploration is making sure that you don't run out of things that you really need, and that would be, one of those things would be sulfuric acid, because we need sulfuric acid to run those processes, and we need iron ingots to run the base. So you need to have sulfuric acid to run the base, basically. Yeah, so anyways, that's kind of a quick overview of the oil processing. Obviously, we've got a giant mall here that makes a bajillion different things and buildings and items and things like that. I'm not going to go through like each and every one of these things. The one thing I will mention though is early on in the game, you get a weapons cache with a certain number of requester chests and things like that before you actually unlock the research. And this was my solution to try and get as much use out of my requester warehouse as I could, as I put all of these buildings around the one warehouse and then had it request a ton of different things. So that is an option for you guys if you're trying to figure out how to best use the requesters that you get from that cache. This is one of those ways. I was able to fit, what is this, 9 buildings around it. So you could do the same, and it is super helpful. Now, let's see. So that's the mall. Over here, we've kind of got all of our inbound and inbound over here, kind of, and here, and then obviously a lot of different outbound rockets. So these were obviously our bread and butter for most of the game, and still will be functioning for quite a long time as it is. I only have the one spaceship automated so far, and we don't actually have any space elevators built yet. We have them unlocked and everything, and I will be doing that shortly here, but I haven't done it yet. I'm not going to go through each one of these rockets and exactly where they go and what they do and all that stuff, but suffice to say, most of them go straight into outer space for sciences, and then the rest go to other planets or asteroid belts for different mining operations. So that's that. We've got a big pyroflux guy right here that does all of our pyroflux. Obviously, pyroflux is another one of those resources that is super, super important, because we need pyroflux in all of these processes to turn the enriched iron ore into molten iron. And so obviously, if you run out of pyroflux, you run out of iron, you run out of copper, you run out of rocket parts. You run out of rocket parts, you can't launch more rockets to get more vulcanite blocks, to get more pyroflux, to get more iron. So that's one of those balances, right? Like if you run out of rocket parts and you run out of pyroflux and you can't go get what you need, you could end up, I mean, it's unlikely, I think, but you could end up in a state where there's literally nothing you could do to progress. So that's, again, one of those balancing acts, making sure that you're producing enough and not overusing it. For a while, I was using pyroflux for my rocket fuel, and I was running out of pyroflux continuously, and eventually I just had to switch back to light oil and be like, I can't do that anymore. I can't spend pyroflux doing that. And so obviously you can see here we've got a lot of solid rocket fuel plants making solid rocket fuel with light oil. So that's important. We've got more mall kind of stuff over here, although this is more dedicated mall. So this is stuff like we've got our airframe scaffolding here and here. We've got some immersium beams, what are these called again? Energy control units. We've got some immersium gear wheels, some bulkheads. So we got that kind of stuff there. We've got similar stuff over here. We've got our airframe poles and holmium cables, more airframe poles. We've got a lot of, this is our green circuit production here entirely. It may not look like much, but this one building here has done almost 3 million products by itself. Obviously, this was kind of like our main bus originally for the base, and it's used less and less as bots are utilized more and more, but it's still useful. There's still a lot of products on it that I absolutely need to be on it. For instance, all of our rough data storage substrates come through the belt and actually get put into a chest down here. I don't know why, it started that way and it's never changed. Obviously we've got all of our sciences and stuff down here. Actually, it looks like we're missing some rocket fuel here. Interesting. Not sure why that is off the top of my head. I'd have to spend some time looking at that to figure out what's going on. Anyways, that's that. Oh, actually, I think I might have gotten rid of that belt. Wait, did I get rid of that belt? This goes here. Oh, no, I didn't. I just accidentally had the belt turned the wrong way. Huh, funny. Nice. Okay, well, we just fixed a problem in the base that I didn't even know about. So that's kind of pretty much novice. The only other thing that I can mention are we've got a bunch of these power plants. We've got 1, 2, 3 down here, and we've got 1, 2 up here. Plus, we can have a huge bank of steam turbines to run our umbrella, just in case. And I think that that is it on power. The last thing on this on this planet is our beryllium process, which very similar to the other processes. We do crushing, and then we do beryllium hydroxide and powder and so on and so forth. Again, here we are using pyroflux, and here we're using sulfuric acid. So those are important as well. We have those getting dropped off here, and we also have a warehouse here with quite a bit of beryllium, actually. Actually, I take that back. That is not the last thing on this planet. We also have, up over here, we have a little bit of a core mining, oops, sorry, hit the wrong key. A little bit of a core mining dealio, but for the most part, and it looks like we're full up on coal. I need to get this coal filtered into the system so that this doesn't back up anymore. But basically, this is where all of our vulcanite cores come in. So we do vulcanite mining on one of our other planets, and we do core mining for that. And so this processes all the extra core fragments that we get from that process. And we have a bunch of different recycling trains that, for the most part, work, except for this guy, I guess. I hadn't finished that one, so gonna have to do that at some point. And that is novice. Let me just zoom way out. Yeah, I'm not forgetting anything. We've got all of our automated walls that build themselves and fix themselves and so on and so forth, which is very helpful and nice. Yeah, that's novice. So that took quite a long time, but it will get increasingly shorter because that is our biggest base. And that's also kind of how I designed the base. Is it's around taking items to novice and then distributing from there. So we pretty much, for the most part, bring all of our items to novice as a central hub, and then they all get dispersed from there to the different places that they need to go. So we do make some items off planet, like the vulcanite blocks. We don't make those on novice. We do make those on another planet. But they get brought back to novice before they get sent to the other places that they need to go. And the reason for that is it just makes a very nice central hub where I know for sure that my items are there, especially for things like the mall and whatnot. It's nice to know that the things are there. And then from there, you know, if I need items, I know that I can always go to novice to get them. Like I can send a rocket from novice if I needed items for something, and I'd be able to get them. So I hope that makes sense, like kind of the design logic. You can do it, like you could send everything to novice orbit, or you could send a heck somewhere else if you wanted. But for me, that is novice. Now, obviously, the next place after novice that I went to, what? I guess it wasn't. No, it was novice orbit. Yeah, you have to go to orbit next for space science. And we started over here at this little cargo landing pad, which actually really isn't in use anymore. And as you can see, like there was base stuff over here, and there's still kind of like random things that I still haven't deconstructed somehow. But it's kind of funny. But our base was over here and stretched like this whole area here, and now it's pretty much just all our solar panels, which is nice. But yeah, this was originally our base here. And then I actually took a long time to migrate to this ginormous base here, which part of me is glad I did that because it's very spread out. It feels very nice. The systems are very nice overall, but there are some things that I wish I'd done slightly differently. Like, I don't think I left enough room for our blank data card production. Like, this has worked, and I've made it work, but I think I'm going to have to add more data card production at some point in another city grid. And I'm trying to think if there was something else. Oh, I only had this one station for like dropping off scrap, and that was awful, so I eventually added this other station for dropping off scrap, which we do process back on Novice, so we do a lot of scrap processing. Actually, I could show that really quickly because I didn't really talk about that at all. But we do get scrap brought back into Novice, and obviously, like I guess there's some things over here I didn't really talk about. A lot of this is just like, you know, cryonite slush and batteries and cation exchange beads, and what are these ones? Anion exchange beads and stuff like that. We've got our vitalic acid and bioscrubbers and vitalic reagent over here. We've got a ton of water electrolysis going on here as well. That's to make hydrogen chloride. But down here we've got a lot of scrap processing. And all of this scrap processing actually like is used. All of the items get filtered back into the system and used up. So if we look at the logistics, somehow we have most U-235 more than any other item in our network, which is pretty cool. Anyways, I just wanted to note that some people actually void their scrap processing, or their scrap, because it is a hassle to deal with, but it's also free resources. If we look at this really quickly, and I'll show this stuff later, but if we look at scrap, like I've used 7.5 million scrap. That's 750,000 iron that I've gotten back for free without mining it somehow. So it is useful. It's just, it does take time to set it up and actually deal with it all and all that stuff. Anyways, another tangent, I know. But what I've done up here is I've made a base that is very, I mean, I like to think of it as organized. It is a little messy. And, you know, there's some serious spaghetti going on in different places. But generally how it works is over here we've got a mall with all of our, what's this stuff called? Coolant. Yeah, like our thermal fluid, thank you. All of our thermal fluid stuff happens over here. We've got trains to ship them in and out. We've got a mall set up here, and we've got a landing pad that basically accepts just about everything. We've got a few other rockets going different places, doing different things. But kind of how we set it up then is each grid has a landing pad in the middle. Gets stuff in for different sciences, makes the sciences. That's pretty much how it works. So like this grid here is tier 1 and 2 of astronomic science. And this grid here is tier 3 and 4. This one here is tier 1 and 2 of energy, tier 3 and 4 of energy, tier 1 and 2 of bio, tier 3 and eventually 4 of bio, which I'm in the middle of working on now. And then down here, same deal. It's going to be tier 1 and 2 of material, tier 1 and or 3 and 4 of material over here as well. Here we've got all of our basic sciences. So we've got production, we've got utility, and then over here we have our buildings doing just the regular science, regular space science, which we just get items from our main mall because it doesn't take that much. Over here we've got our significant data being done, and actually I haven't even switched these yet to use the bio, which I could do. I just have no need to do it at the moment, but because we have 25,000 significant data just sitting here, which is a little bit annoying. Whatever. Last but not least, we have all of our polishing and stuff over here. Just a note, I know some people like using the chemical gel for polishing, and while chemical gel is super nice in that it doesn't produce scrap or contaminated anything, it actually is way more expensive, especially in terms of petroleum, because it actually uses it up. Whereas here, it inputs 5 cosmic water, outputs 5 contaminated cosmic water, and then for every 100 contaminated cosmic water, you get 99 of that back as regular cosmic water. So you actually lose 1 cosmic water for every 20 processes, rather than losing most of your chemical gel every time. And I don't remember exactly what the ratio is, but it's way worse. So that's just a note, is that it's way better to do that. Plus, if you do it early on enough, it'll give you biosludge, enough biosludge to jumpstart biology science. So that's actually how I was able to Jumpstart Bioscience is from cleaning out the contaminated biosludge that we get from cleaning the contaminated cosmic water. Last but not least, we also have our blank data card or junk data card processing over here. We now are on level 2 of that, so we 80% of the time get back a blank data card and only 20% of the time lose it. And the broken ones end up over here in our rocket to get sent back to Novice, and then the rest end up over here to get distributed to our network. And that's how that works. We've got some smarts on our chest here to insert only up to a certain number of each pack, which I think is pretty cool. If you want to look at that, when I did that, I explained exactly how all of that worked. So that's back quite a few episodes now, actually. And we've also got our science labs here with all of our different sciences that get brought up. So all of these sciences get made down on Novice and shipped up here. And then the rest are either made up here or shipped in. And then here, last but not least, we do have our productivity 6s, which I'm working on getting towards productivity 7s and 8s, which would be really nice. And the nice thing about that is here you can see we have a research speed of 72 from our beacon, but we also have a productivity bonus of 93%. So we're roughly getting almost 2 packs for every 1 pack we've actually made. We're getting 2 science from every 1 pack we've made, which is really nice. And that is Novice orbit, which is like my second largest base, right behind Novice. So now we've already looked at like 2 of the biggest bases, and you can see some close-ups here. This one especially is a pretty messy area. This one is probably my most neat, honestly, and I'm quite proud of it. This is the astronomic science. Looks very cool in my opinion. And I've tried to ratio everything as well, so it's pretty close to ratioed. At least I've tried. Thank you, Factory Planner. I appreciate the help with that. Yeah, so that is going to be biology science here. Got lots of cool things going on. If you want to pause the video and take a look at different things or go back to the videos where I worked on these things, feel more than free to do that. Energy science, and then all the way down here we've got our material science as well. All right, that is Novice orbit. We're going to kind of breeze through the next bases because those are actually the main bases where the work of the stuff actually happens. Most of the other stuff is just resource collection. So this little moon here, as you can see, it's fully explored. This was originally my vulcanite production planet, but we have no more vulcanite here because we mined it all out. I think all that's left is this 839,000 and like these tiny little patches, which not really worth doing anything with anymore. But what we are doing over here is we're doing our vitamelange processing, which is quite a big process. We've got it getting mined out here. We've got a lot of crusher or pulverizers, I guess. I should switch these to be advanced chemical plants, but honestly at this point it's working and I'm pretty happy with it, I suppose. And we've got our spice and then our extracts down here. Pretty straightforward stuff. We are using we're using all of the stone output from these processes. We're feeding it into the sand process for all this stuff, which is cool. So we're actually using all 100% of that stone that's used here. We're voiding off all the wood because there's nothing to do with it and I don't feel like shipping it anywhere. It stacks way too low, so on and so forth. And that's actually all that this planet is doing. Besides, this is where our imersite is coming from. So we do have some imersite over here that's getting sent back, but we're almost out of imersite. We've got these patches here and then this little patch here, and that's it. I've mined out, I guess a little bit more over here, but I've mined out everything else here. There used to be a lot of patches and there no longer are. I could do some more mining here of different things at some point, but we'll see if that ends up happening. It's nice because the planet's, populated now and there's stuff here, so if I want to, it'd be easy, but that's that planet. All right, we got Calidus orbit here. This is the entire orbit here. This little base just to do our probes for the star probe data. Now, this is an absolute mess here, and yeah. I didn't think through these, I think, too well, and I'm a little upset with how I did them, but at this point, they work. They've got their stuff, and I'm not going to like go back and change how they work, but I wish I'd used spaceships instead of rockets to do. That's the one regret I have, but it works. So that's that. Mantis is one of the newest bases, and that's where we're actually doing all of our immersite mining for the spaceship that you saw earlier. So that'll drop in here, load up, go back to the other planet, drop there, unload, and then come back. Very simple process, very, very effective though. And this place will eventually run out of immersite as well, but we've got a big patch here of 2.2 million. Got a little bit more down here. And I think, oh yeah, there's another big patch up here. So it should last us a while at least. And that's that base. That's pretty small. This base, oh, this is nothing. I should look at that. This is actually, this right here is probably our third biggest base right now. We've got a lot going on. We've got a bunch of trains going back and forth and stuff. This is where we do all of our iridite and vulcanite processing together. And you can see it's very heavily defended, as this is a planet with quite a lot of biters. And once I get that plague rocket, let me tell you, I am launching one here because I hate dealing with the biters here. But we've got a lot going on. We've got, it's a waterless planet, so I am using the condenser turbines here, which are awesome if you can use them. We've got water ice being supplied here to supply our nuclear reactors. One note is with the condenser turbines, make sure that you can deal with all of the water and that you don't flood the system, because then your reactors will shut down and your power will go out and you'll get attacked by biters and lose stuff. And I did that plenty of times. Took a while to like figure out exactly how to get the water to all balance and everything. Basically it involved adding a lot of extra storage. But so we got two of these guys that run. We make a decent amount of power here, just over a gigawatt that we're using currently. Again, everything is productivity moduled, so it takes a lot of power. We've got a little oil plant here to make some sulfur, which is used for our vulcanite processing to make enriched vulcanite, which we need for in terms of the iridite that we're processing, which is all done in this process here. It comes in from train, and we'll look at that in a second. Goes through crushing, pulverizing, and powdering, and blast caking, and then comes over here to be done, made into ingots. But with that, we need enriched vulcanite, so that's what this is for. And then down over here is where we actually do all of our vulcanite processing. So we've got core mining going on here and here, and that's all core mine. And then we have priority splitting from our core mining so that it uses that before it uses our patch here. But our patch here is starting to run low. It's down to 4.5 million. Used to be at like 9. So we've used like half of this, which is kind of crazy to me, actually. And then all of it, we've got our enriching process here. We've got our vulcanite blocks. And then kind of all of that gets joined. We got a little maul here from our core fragments. But then all of that kind of gets joined here, core fragments, stone, and vulcanite blocks, and it gets sent back to that core fragment processing that you saw on Novice. So that's that. In terms of the iridite, you saw the whole process here, but we've also got trains that are transporting barrels of sulfuric acid, and they're all going out this long track out to our iridite little outpost here. We've got a bunch of mining going on because iridite is quite slow to mine. It's what? Mining speed 500%, so quite slow. I'm gonna have to mine out this vulcanite at some point as well, but that will have to wait. So yeah, that's this. Excuse me. That's this planet. It's very cool. There is some immersite here. Not gonna use it. And I'll probably do more core mining than just the two that I have set up at the moment, but it's going to take time. Once I launch the Plague rocket here, it'll actually be a lot easier because then I don't have to worry about protecting everything. And I'm looking forward to that. That is all of that processing. Next, we have our Calidus asteroid belt. Here we've got another one of those little probe bases where we make, in this case, asteroid belt probe data. Surprise, surprise, in an asteroid belt. We also have methane ice. We have a ginormous, way out here, giant methane ice patch, which I'm going to be using for a very long time. If probably for the rest of the playthrough. There's no way that I could use more than that, honestly. But that gets sent back to Novice for biology science, because we need methane ice to make methane gas to make, what is it, chemical, or what is it called again? I always forget like what these things are. And I always forget where they are too, apparently. Here it is. Nutrient gel, that's it. I was gonna say chemical gel, but I knew that wasn't right. Nutrient gel. So we use this recipe. It's way cheaper. But it does require methane ice, which we get here. And then over here, we've got our barrel processing, and this gets sent back to Novice as well to get turned into barrel ingots. And this was originally what we came to this asteroid belt for, was the barrel, and then we just added these other things later on. We produce a decent amount of electricity here, but not too much. I think actually if all of our miners were running for this ginormous barrel patch, oh, they actually are running. Oh, I don't know. For some reason I thought it would go over, but maybe I am misremembering those things. And this actually is going to be the last base here. This is where we do cryonite and holmium. Now, holmium is actually the one thing I'm really short of at the moment. I'm going to need to come over here to do some working on this process here. This actually, I didn't think of it at the time, but this has some major throughput issues because it's one belt. So I need to come upgrade these to like purple belts, I think, so that it like really forces the items through. Because like we're full up on this stuff here, it's just not getting down far enough to like work quickly enough, and it's taking forever for me to get any holmium. So I need to come here and work on that actually very soon. But yeah, we're starting to run low on holmium. I had to come like all the way out here and all the way up here to grab holmium. Used to be like this little patch here. So we've done a lot of holmium as well. And then over here we've got our cryonite. This really like, well, this cryonite's running low, so I might have to like mine out this patch here. But honestly, you use way less cryonite than I thought you would. So like this has been running the whole time, and I've barely done anything to this. Obviously, there's some crashes that have happened on top here, but whatever. We'll pick it up at some point. We'll clean it all up. But it's been working for a long time. This was the first other resource that I did because I wanted to go straight for those bots as quickly as possible. Requester chests. So for the utility science, we got cryonite first, and that's why all of this was done first. Yeah, so that's this planet. Pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just doing the two resources, crushing, powder, whatever, the whole process. I mean, you guys can figure out that process, but I think what's more interesting is the thought process behind things. And really what I was doing early on was looking for planets that had A, low biter impact, B, multiple of the items that I needed. In this case, I needed cryonite and holmium, and this had a good abundance of both. And then it was just a matter of figuring out how I was going to do things. Number one thing I learned early on in this playthrough, though, is if you can do processing of resources on a planet, do it on the planet that you mine it on, because they stack so low. Like, you can't really send holmium in a rocket because it stacks in 20s. And, like, sending a whole rocket, you'd get, like, a couple ingots, and you'd be like, what is this? And it's just not worth the resources. So actually processing here is pretty much the only way that you can do it. I think you can maybe crush it and then send it, but even that I think is just like, if you're going to crush it, just do the whole process there. Same goes for all of the resources except for beryllium. Beryllium stacks in 50s, so you can actually do beryllium. You can send beryllium raw back to wherever you're doing processing mainly. And that's what I did. Yeah, so that's kind of the whole thing. So all of those planets, like all the resources that are gathered on them or made on them, they get shipped back to Novice, and then on Novice they get shipped off to the different, science and Space Mall and Novice Mall and all those kinds of things, and used, wherever they're needed, pretty much. In terms of rail networks, my main rail network that I have is here. I have another one on the Vulcanite planet, but that's pretty much it. I don't do a ton of rails besides that. Oh, I guess there is one in space. And I will be connecting very soon this rail network and my Novice Orbit rail network, but have not done that yet. And also, I don't know how exactly I want to do it, because down here we have these normal looking trains, and obviously you've probably noticed that, like up here, we have our cool SE space trains that look super sick and have cool wagons, and they have even cooler, let's see. They have even cooler fluid wagons, and by cooler, I mean super cooled. Anyways, sorry, bad jokes, I know. But yeah, so that's the base, pretty much. In terms of production numbers, well, let's look at a couple different things, and then we'll be done with the episode today. I know we've been going a long time. Hope you guys don't mind, but I love talking about the base, and it's just cool to see it all come together. Milestones. So, I mean, you guys can pause and take a look at this. I played through the beginning of this playthrough really quickly, and then it kind of slowed down as I got into space and started expanding, I think, as it probably does for most people. But I think I have gone through this playthrough pretty quickly overall. And I think milestones is a cool way to look back and kind of see where you were. I installed it a little bit late, so the times aren't exact, but they're close. They're close. But yeah, there's so much that you can kind of get out of this. So if you want to pause, take a look at my times, and enjoy that, go right ahead. But you can also kind of figure out like what order I did things and whatnot. But mostly I tried to focus on like doing sciences in order 1 and 2, 1 and 2, like doing like Astro 1 and 2, and then Energy 1 and 2, and then Bio 1 and 2, and so on and so forth. And then we'll do, right now we're in the middle of finishing off 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4. And then we'll have to do like this advanced card and matter science and all that stuff, all that jazz. But yeah, so that's the milestones. And then the last thing would be the production graphs. So if we look at, well, even if you look at like 10 minutes, like you can see we are using a ton of copper and a ton of like, well, Vitamelange I think is just because it's all processing right now, but copper really is the main one that we've been using, honestly, and a lot of sand, of course. But if we look at all, you can really see like copper is way up there. Like you use a ton of copper in these playthroughs. Iron, not so much, surprisingly. So I just think it's very interesting. Some pretty big numbers here. 23 million Vulcanite. And the sad thing about Vulcanite is even though I've mined out 23 million raw, it only translates to 4.9 million Vulcanite blocks, which I think is just a little bit sad. But that's how the ratios work, so it's all right. But yeah, like I don't know. I just think these are things that are pretty cool. If you guys want to, slow down, take a look here. I mean, tons of glass and beryllium and lots of plastic, 12 million plastic and 15 million electronic circuits might sound like a lot, but really it's not a lot compared to some of these other numbers, I feel like. At least in base Factorio, you make a lot more. Fluids, these numbers are just crazy. We got 8 billion water, 6.7 billion steam, 2.2 billion oxygen. This part right here is mainly for rocket fuel, solid rocket fuel. Obviously lots of molten copper and iron. We got internal turbine steam, oil down here, so on and so forth. I think this graph makes a lot of sense. One other thing I actually wanted to note really quickly was blank data cards. You make a lot of blank data cards, and I said that I didn't make enough here. And there's a reason. It's because like we've made 1.6 million blank data cards and we're out of blank data cards. Like there are none right now. So just be careful, you know, of making sure you're making enough of that. And yeah, I guess there's really nothing else I wanted to show with this production for the fluid. But yeah, it's just, you know, there's a lot of really cool things you can see. Like we've made 830,000 junk data cards. And, you know, so making sure that your processes are getting upgraded so that you're not doing 75% back to blank, but you're doing 80% back to blank. Like that might not sound like a lot, but when it, you know, adds up over 800,000 processes, like that ends up being a hefty amount of resources that you save all at once. I don't know. I'm a big like efficiency guy. Like think my base might not be the most efficient thing ever, and I'm not, you know, micromanaging exact ratios and all that stuff, but I try and use all the resources that I get, and I try to use them as effectively as possible. So I always advocate that as well. Anyways, that's going to be it for the base tour. I hope you guys enjoyed. It is a pretty expansive base, and it took me... Oh, last thing I promise, is we're just going to look at time. If I could remember how to do time. 8 days, 9 hours, 13 minutes, and 10 seconds. So we are now like 100 and... I mean, what is that? If we go save... What are we? 200 hours in. We're 200 hours in to the playthrough. So, you know, that might be something that you're interested in knowing, kind of the stage of game I'm at and how many hours I'm in. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Next time we will be working on some bioscience again, so hope to see you guys for that. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did enjoy, it'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and I will see you all next time.